Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the hearing. The hearing will now proceed. My name is Jonathan Gomwalk, and I'm the hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. Cerise Waters is the clerk for the hearing. This hearing is being recorded, and the sign-in sheet is on the table on the side of the room. Please be sure to sign in for the record, and so that if necessary, we can contact you in the future regarding the item you're here for. The public hearing is being held to consider 3 appeals from property owners that were assessed fines for excessive or illegal pruning of trees, for not planting a replacement tree, or for illegally removing a tree. They are order number 201501 to consider the removal of 2 street trees with replacement of 1 tree adjacent to 44 Otis Street. Order number 201502 to consider the removal of 6 street trees with replacement of 5 trees adjacent to 200 Larkin Street along the High Street frontage of the property. Order number 201503 to consider the removal of 2 street trees with replacement adjacent to 1688 and 1698 Sutter Street. My job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing item, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works to make his determinations. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I'll forward the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the Director. The Director will make the final determinations. When the Director's determinations are made, the Department will notify you of them. Therefore, if you want to be notified, please do sign in on the sign-in sheet provided at the desk. The hearing will proceed as follows. For each case, I will ask Public Works staff to speak first and present the case. Then I will allow the property owner or appellant to speak. Then any member of the public or witness who wants to speak regarding that particular item. Then the department, if the department would like to address any comments made. And then the property owner or appellant again if that person has any rebuttals. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers. When you hear the first bell, it means the speaker has 30 seconds left to speak. A louder second bell signals that the time is up. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not to the department or the applicant. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony by the end of this hearing to myself. If I feel a question is warranted, I will ask the question. After all comments are completed, I'll close the item. We will now begin the hearing, and I'd like to begin first with case order number 20501 to consider the removal of 2 street trees with replacement of 1 tree adjacent to 44 Otis Street. Department, please state your name for the record, and you may proceed.
Hello, good evening. I'm Sarah Stacy, representing Bureau of Urban Forestry. We only have a few cases this evening, so before I present the first case, I kind of have just a presentation to give to the public with some general information that's relevant to the cases we are discussing this evening. Again, my name is Sarah Stacy. I represent Bureau of Urban Forestry. I'm an urban forestry inspector. Our team of inspectors are certified arborists, and to meet these goals of Article 16 of the Public Works Code, the Urban Forestry Ordinance, our objective when reviewing removal applications is to protect healthy, vigorous trees and to deny the removals of trees in poor condition. So what this means for healthy trees at construction sites is that they should be preserved and protected. We would approve applications for removal of trees found to be dead, dying, diseased, in poor condition because of decline, and in cases where they pose a risk to the public's safety and where the risk cannot be mitigated by pruning or other corrective means. So at the time of inspection, we are looking for signs of dieback, decay, reduced vigor, past failure occurrences, and we consider the species, age, and the tree's reaction in response to past injuries and how it compartmentalizes decay. So we evaluate the structure of each tree, case by case, and understand its likelihood of failure. So I would like everyone to close their eyes and bear with me. Short evening, ask for your patience. Just close your eyes. Today there was a hearing for a climate emergency to discuss strategies to achieve deep greenhouse gas emission reductions by 2030. I did not attend this meeting, but want to read a quote by a writer out of Montana. This is the quote. "Let's optimize our urban forests for planet's health. I am so grateful for local forums on addressing climate change, including topics such as alternative transportation, recycling, and water and energy conservation. One solution I haven't seen emphasized is how important our trees are to addressing climate change. Trees provide us with many benefits, but when it comes to climate change, they offer one of the best natural pollution control technologies. What trees contribute is so great. The word eco-technology has been coined for them. One author notes that nothing that the human enterprise does can come anywhere near the elegance and efficiency of a robust global forest. So in the meantime, each one of us can contribute by planting and caring for the appropriate trees for our region to help manage and optimize our urban forests for the benefit of the planet. So before you open your eyes, just remember these words, these key words: planting, caring, and appropriate. So Street Tree SF, this is basically the
Can we open our eyes now?
implementation. Excuse me?
Can we open our
Yes.
eyes? You didn't tell us when to open our eyes.
Open your eyes
Okay.
now, please, and have your ears open. Street Tree SF, this is the implementation of Proposition E, which was approved by the citizens of San Francisco in 2016 and began to be implemented in July of 2017. This is a $19 million funded implementation program that is managing our street tree population. We are doing a lot of removals, but basically that's because we're dealing with a lot of trees that haven't been maintained for a long time. My big boss, Carla Short, says, "There's deferred maintenance all around the city. Some of the trees we recently inspected and posted for removal were the property owner's responsibility. But now we're responsible for them, and we're finding major concerns we have to address. After addressing the worst off trees, removals will begin to level off, allowing more focus on planting new trees, not just replacing them." I show this map because I still get a lot of calls at our public office about, do I need a permit to prune? Who's in charge of my tree? So this is just kind of a PSA public information I'm putting out there that all the city's street trees are maintained by the city. Removals do require a removal permit, and we do issue fines for the illegal pruning or the excessive pruning of street trees. So in my department, basically, our obligation is to look out for the trees of San Francisco, the street trees. And two goals help guide our work, my department's work. The Urban Forestry Ordinance, which was enacted to protect and realize the optimum public benefits of trees and is important green infrastructure. And then two, the goal one of the Public Works Strategic Plan, which is to ensure a safe, clean, and green infrastructure and public right-of-way. So how does that play out? Two of our cases are removals that my department approved. In one of the cases, one of the hearing cases tonight is a case we denied. Two of the cases in which we approved, they both deal with ficus trees. And this relates to DPW order number 183151, which was issued by the Director of Public Works, Muhammad Nuro, back in 2015 to outline and recognize removal criteria for ficus trees. This is here for your review, but to just name a few of the indicators we look at when approving ficus removal is the tree's size, the tree's canopy vigor, how much of the canopy is in decline. Live crown ratio we'll review, which is basically the percentage of the crown compared to the tree's height, which exists. How large the tree is, the balance of the tree, and then also the structure of the tree. Does it have a good structure, U-shaped unions, or are the limbs tightly attached with a narrow angle of attachment? So those are some things we look at. And then I just want to show briefly here some examples of ficus. This looks like a healthy, large, mature, established ficus tree, correct? But what do you know when you look at the tree from the backside? I don't know if you can see well in this photo, but it's riddled with decay. This is from the side of the property, but you wouldn't notice that from the street looking at it. You would think this is a healthy, mature, beautiful green tree. Why should it be removed? Here, this arrow points to what I would consider and qualify as a healthy structure, kind of U-shaped, a wide angle of attachment. There we see in the back several of the branches just riddled with decay. There's a closer image of it. And so we did approve this tree for removal. We posted it for 30 days, and we did not receive any appeals for this tree. And it's scheduled to be removed through the maintenance work scheduled for this grid zone. This is just another example of a ficus failure. This is in July 2009. This ficus has codominant stems and a previous failure. And this is what happened in 2011, where that codominant stem was. It basically split in half. There's just a closer view of it. This is a tree on Lombard. The arrow points to where there are codominant stems. Basically an area where the branches grow together, but the angle of attachment is very narrow. So as the bark that holds those branches together grows, when it forms, it's not attached very strongly compared to a U-shaped union. And this is what happened to the tree. So we see this over and over with ficus trees, and that's why in 2015 the director issued that order outlining the criteria for ficus removal. And our department, our staff, was directed to always be out evaluating ficus for removal, especially in corridors like Lombard, Hyde, Potrero, where there are large stature ficus and there are muni lines, a lot of infrastructure that the ficus failures could impact. So thank you for your attention to that. This begins order number 201501 for 44 Otis Street to consider removal of 2 street trees with the replacement of 1. We approved the removal of these ficus trees, and we received a protest from the public. So this image shows tree 1 at 44 Otis. These trees were posted for removal after the maintenance contract went through the area. So our census recommended these trees just to be pruned, and that took place 1 year ago when the maintenance contract went through the area. We were notified by an agency who looks out at these trees, DBI, about the condition of them, the decline in the canopy, so a loss of vigor, and we went out and posted them for removal, that being the impetus. But some things that also made us feel strongly about the removal was the continued damage to the trunk from lack of clearance over the street. So large vehicles hit the trunk and cause this damage to the tree. And then also areas where there's poor structure. So this is tree 2, shown in decline. I would say at least 80% of the canopy is defoliated. All the leaves have dropped. And then this arrow points to a deficiency where there's poor structure, where the codominant stems are. This could be a point where there's a limb failure, a large limb failure. And the image on the right, just showing again those 3 codominant stems with poor attachment. And then just for reference, these are not the trees at 44 Otis, but at different sites, examples of ficus that we have posted as well because of the decline in the canopy. So the 2 trees on the left are on Orban Place, and then the ficus on the right is on Florida Street. So they both trees, all 3 trees have kind of denuded, their canopies are denuded, they've dropped all their leaves, and they're showing decline. And to be consistent with other cases, we approved the 2 ficus trees at 44 Otis for removal, and the public protested. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant, property owner here, wish to speak regarding this item? If not, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak regarding this item? Please step up and state your name for the record.
May I have the overhead, please? Hi, my name is John Nolte. I'm the protestant for the trees at 44 Otis Street. As you see from my picture, we have a couple issues going on here. Here's a bus, and this is Mission Street. This is where the Mission bus goes down, and they have a red corridor. Anyway, you see that it's a temporary stop, so it's not going to stay there, the bus. And so,
Can you move the picture a little bit? We're
Oh.
see it fully. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's the bus. Okay. Anyway, and the bus is because it's one of the conditions of taking out a tree is also a bus stop, but it's a temporary bus stop because there's further down the street is a building being built, and that's why the bus stop was moved from the corner to the middle of the block. So therefore, that's probably why there's damage being there, because of load. I actually saw a picture, or I took a picture of them unloading things, and they were right next to the tree. So again, because it's there's nothing, for the property owner, this property, people coming in and out with loading things because it's a various storefronts here, but also for the building is being built on up the street on Otis. Again, we would like to preserve the tree, and also, as you can see, it is more fuller than the pictures that was talked about, and people do stop there for the bus stop because that's a temporary bus stop. So I don't feel that it's necessarily needed to be removed because it's not being hit by the cars or trucks, and if they need to prune, they can prune those limbs that are, if they're not within the guidelines for, I forget how many feet it has to be up over the roadway. So that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak? Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Yeah, my name is Josh Klipp. I'm an attorney and a longtime resident of San Francisco. As Sarah Stacy pointed out, that there is the director's order that is easing the removal of ficus across the city, and this is something that is happening all over the city. There are probably close to over 100 happening down in the Mission. We know about Hayes Valley, North Beach, and multiple neighborhoods all across the city. And my objection is that these removals are failing to comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, as it is commonly known, which requires cities to do environmental impact reports when there are large projects that could, I guess, for keeping this simple, impact the environment. Article 16, which is the article that applies to tree removals and plantings, and to which Public Works is beholden, specifically addresses compliance with CEQA. And so my point is simply that any ficus removal, as this is part of a larger initiative, it is a specifically targeted tree. There are 7,000 ficus across the city, which comprises roughly 6% of our already incredibly small urban canopy, would require compliance with CEQA and environmental impact report. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Overhead, please. My name is Michael Nulty, N-U-L-T-Y, and I'm the Executive Director of Alliance for a Better District 6. A couple things, and I'll do this for all three items on the agenda. The website has incorrect notice. If you notice, it says, this is the website for your, says that this meeting's on Wednesday. This is Monday. So this is an improper notice meeting, or there is another meeting happening on Wednesday I invite you to. However you want to look at it. This is confusing to the public when they're not clear which meeting to attend. Is this done purposely, or? And this was, I was able to download this a few minutes ago before I came to this meeting, so it's still there. It wasn't removed. Also, I want to point out that the presentation I just heard was all in fine, but confusing. Talking about other trees at other locations that have no bearing to the agenda item is confusing to the public, and just emphasizing their pros and cons on an issue that's not relevant to the actual site that's being on the agenda. Now, if it's, they want to talk about an agenda item, talk about the agenda item specifically, and not all the other gobbledygook that they want to add in and pile and pile and pile and pile, showing us a bunch of failures throughout the city, throughout the years. We've had trees in San Francisco for many years. Now, as far as this particular location, if there was a need for anything, it would be to preserve the tree and to trim it. Anything else is absurd. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak regarding this item? Does the department have anything further? Okay, thank you. We will now move on to agenda item number 2, which is order number 201502, to consider the removal of 6 street trees with replacement of 5 trees adjacent to 200 Larkin Street along the High Street frontage of the property.
Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry. This is case 201502 to consider removal of 6 street trees with replacement of 5 adjacent to 200 Larkin Street. Our staff, we denied the request for removal, and the applicant appealed. This shows 3 of the London plane trees at the Asian Art Museum, shown here on Hyde Street. The trees are in good, healthy condition. These are examples of what we want to see this species become and grow into. These trees are providing shade, beauty to the area. They're in good condition. In construction projects, we want to see that they're preserved and protected during construction, because this is an asset that takes more than 20 years to replace. This is another one of the London plane trees. And then 3 more as you get closer, moving south towards the library. This is an interior view of the London plane tree seen from the construction site view. You can see the wall that's along the street edge of the trees. That exists now, whereas in the photos before, it didn't show that construction wall that had been put up. The trees do have protection. You can see the very high plywood barricades around each of the trunks. So they are following Article 16 requirements to protect the trees during construction. To be consistent with other cases, because the trees are healthy, the area inspector received the removal application, but he denied it based on these reasons. The trees are healthy and sustainable. The design should have been made to incorporate the existing trees. And finally, the visibility to and from the new facade does not warrant removal. So we denied the removal of these trees. And then lastly, I just kind of wanted to reference 2 schematics that are on the side of the construction wall that the public walks by. It's a kind of a fuzzy image, but you can see the tree canopy that the people on the upper level terrace would see, but this wouldn't exist for 20 years from now if the current trees are removed. And then this schematic shows the installation of some new street trees, but again, I just want to emphasize that this wouldn't really, the benefits of these new trees really won't take off or be appreciated for 15, 20 years. So we really question why they have to be removed, why they can't be worked around and protected. And so I'll leave that for the applicant to explain. To be consistent with other cases, again, we denied the removal of these healthy, mature trees. Do you want the PDF for the PowerPoint?
Right, it appears the property owner applicant is here. All right, yeah, kindly step up and state your names for the record, please.
My name is Carol Sherpa, and I'm the construction project manager at the Asian Art Museum. I also have in support Jay Shu, our executive director, Joanne Chu, our CFO, COO, and Eric Klein, our director of facilities, who filed the application. So as stated, this is a project for the Asian Art Museum. It is not a new building. It's actually an addition on top of an existing one-story building that's sort of sandwiched between the wings of the historic building. So it's allowing us a wider and safer loading dock area to our loading facility off Hyde Street. We're adding 13,000 square feet of gallery space, as well as 8,500 feet of an art terrace, which is actually on top of the gallery we're building. So the building is a two-story building with an art terrace. All our plans have been approved by multiple city agencies, and we are currently under construction and about halfway through the project. So our request was to remove 5 trees and replace 5 trees and remove 1 tree on Hyde Street. The tree that we're asking to remove is closest to the loading dock entry, and where we're expanding the loading dock entry to expedite delivery of vehicles that back in from Hyde Street. Currently, we have a very narrow dock, and it's quite disruptive to the traffic on Hyde Street when we have deliveries. And staff, if we have a large semi-trailer with an art delivery, staff can spend as much as 30 minutes, on Hyde Street controlling traffic while our deliveries back in. We also are looking to replace these trees because we find the London plane is very fast growing. We started this project about 5 years ago, and it's grown a lot since we began the project. Our addition extends just to the property line. The sidewalk is fairly narrow on Hyde Street compared to, say, Fulton or McAllister. It's only 13 feet. And we are very willing to replace the trees with a mutually agreeable selection. The issues for us are really security. You can see that the tree canopy is right up to the edge of our art terrace. This is from the 2nd level, and we're concerned about people being able to climb up there. We have art exhibit on the terrace, which could be at risk. There's also 3 different entry points into the building from the terrace, which could be an issue, and then potential risks to staff and visitors. It's also a safety issue. We worry about people trying to climb into the tree. We cater to school children and have about 40,000 visitors a year. And it's also an issue for the neighborhood. We were asked by ARC, HPC, and the planning department to put windows in this facade so we could provide more eyes on the street in the Fulton Street area. And so we have done that. And it had been originally an enclosed building, and now we have a large glass facade.
All right,
Thank you.
I have one question for you.
Sure.
On the order, it says, I believe it reads, removal of five trees?
Right.
Removal of 6 with replacement of 5, but you only want 1 removed? I just want to be clear.
No,
You're asking
no,
for 1
we're
to be
actually
removed?
asking for 6 trees to be removed, 5 would be replaced, 1 would not be because of the widening of the driveway.
Okay.
And there's not, because of different underground utilities along Hyde Street, light posts, transformer box, there really isn't a place to put in another tree well for another tree.
Okay, just wanted to be clear.
Yeah.
Thank
that's-
you.
That's a good question. All right, thank you.
Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak regarding this item? Kindly step up to the microphone and state your name for the record, please. Thank you.
My name is Tonya McNeil, and I live in District 10. And I'm speaking because I just came from the hearing downstairs of the Board of Supervisors about the climate emergency and the need to have all city departments, all members of the city working together to do everything we can to mitigate the effects of the carbon emissions, et cetera, that are destroying our planet. And then I come up here, and one of the main things that people brought up was the need to plant trees and the need for the carbon sequestration, for the shade, for the health of the insect population, et cetera, and the bird population. And then I come here and I hear one city department being asked to remove mature, healthy trees. And this is exactly the kind of non-coordination and non-overarching city policy that is hindering the city going full force in its efforts to mitigate climate change. I know if I asked to have a mature, healthy tree taken down on my property before 2016, I wouldn't have been allowed to do it. I think it's clear that the Asian Art Museum didn't pay attention in the design process, and the Planning Commission didn't pay attention in the approval process to these trees. And I think it's time the city started paying attention to these trees. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public, please state your name for the record.
Josh Klipp. I also just came from that hearing down on the second floor where they told us that we've got 10 years to turn this around. And we've got Ms. Stacy from the Bureau of Urban Forestry saying it's going to take 20 years to grow back what we'd be losing here. This is not, this is a problem that the Asian Art Museum designed itself into. And, and now we want to be removing a public asset at a time that we desperately need it. The director of the Department of the Environment led her presentation with how badly we need to be planting trees in this city. And so the Asian Art Museum understands we have the smallest urban canopy of any major city in the United States. We cannot afford to just design our way into these problems and then expect the trees to be what we remove in order to get ourselves out of it. I agree that this is, I have to say, Tanya stated it very well, and I'm not going to repeat what she said. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Hello?
Yes, please state your name for the record.
Nathan van 't Hof. I'm just a little confused by the arguments given to take these trees away. I think if you look at the pictures, we would also be able to climb up onto the roof using streetlights or rain pipes or even just a ladder. I think a much easier solution would just be install locks on the doors to the roof rather than to cut these trees away. So that's what I would suggest doing instead.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public? Please state your name for the record.
Can you, okay. My name is John Alty, and I'm here representing Turner Lane Tree Campaign that's been around for 18 years. These are the trees currently, as you see, they are on Hyde and that's going toward Market Street.
Excuse me, sir, we can't
Oh.
really see your picture.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, that's better.
Anyway, okay, there you go. And so I have seen trucks turn into the Asian Art Museum. That's the fault, again. They moved, the Asian Art Museum moved out of the Golden Gate Park to this location. They chose this location, okay? So they got the old library, and they chose to redesign it to where it's at, and now they were adding another phase to the building. This is not the first renovations to the building. It's like 4 or 5 of them since they took over the Asian Art Museum. And by the way, Asian Art Museum is part of the city. So the city owns this property. So it's just another arm of the city. So that's a picture of the trees. Then we have the Civic Center realm plan that talks about the London pine trees, and we see them all around the Civic Center area, and it's 24% of the trees. And for them to come up here and tell us to take out 24% of the trees around the Civic Center area because they don't like them, that's too bad. This is what the city's planted in the area. Next, again, with the Civic Center realm plan, it also states that specifically the trees that at the Asian Art Museum right there are in fair condition. So this is probably right around when they started to plan this current building, or this extension. So therefore, you have competing plans here going on, and I find that again, they want to do something that's not relevant to the community. And also, I want to bring up that Hyde Street is a major thoroughfare, and so it's like Highway 1, a lot of people coming down it. So, of course, you need to protect their trucks from coming in and out. But they inherited that property or they chose that property, so they inherited the loading dock, and now they want to take out a tree because it's in the way, but it's been like that since they took over the building. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please state your name for the record, sir.
Hi, my name is Michael Noltein. I'm the Executive Director of Alliance for a Better District 6 in a long time. I'm a native San Franciscan. And, you know, the Asian Art Museum, I guess you could say, is a crown jewel, one of our crown jewels in San Francisco. It sees a lot of visitors. It's a tourist destination. And we can go down all this gobbledygook about what the Asian Art Museum does, and I appreciate it there. It does see a lot of, it does do programming for the children and on and on and on and on. That's all PR. But how is it for the neighborhood? It didn't do any community outreach, really. I happen to be an executive director of a planning organization in the neighborhood that oversees this kind of stuff. Did it come to my organization and say what it was going to do? The answer is no. You know, and obviously it got all its permits and it decided to do all this internal stuff. This is all internal planning. Now, we're removing the trees, which is on the agenda. Again, no, I don't think anybody in the neighborhood so far has said yes, or has spoken that said yes, except the project sponsor. So I think they're out of touch, they're out of sync. Maybe they're in the wrong spaceship. They need to go somewhere else and find what's really going on planet Earth. And I think, again, I also want to protest the fact that this meeting was wrongly agendized, and maybe more people would have come out and pointed out these issues or how they concern. You know, we do have a lot of venues and activities that happen on a regular basis in and around the Civic Center area. And when there are major changes to the alteration of the Civic Center area, which the Asian Art Museum is in, that has an impact. We need to have healthy, mature trees in the area to deal with all the activities that happen in our neighborhood, particularly around summertime, and for shade and everything else. So please keep the trees and have them go back to the drawing board and come up with a better proposal that works for everybody. This obviously doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public would like to speak regarding this item? Seeing no one, Public Works staff, do you have anything further you wish to add regarding this item? No. Does the applicant, property owner, have anything further they wish to add? All right, thank you. We will now move on to the final item on today's agenda, order number 201503, to consider the removal of 2 street trees with replacement adjacent to 1688 and 1698 Sutter Street.
Sarah Stacy, Bureau of Urban Forestry. This is order number 201503 to consider the removal of 2 street trees with replacement adjacent to 1688 and 1698 Sutter Street. Our department approved the removal of the 2 trees and we received public protests. This is tree 1, or tree in front of 1688 Sutter Street. Here, this image is here to show you one of the criteria met being low live crown ratio, being less than 30%. So the removal criteria through the director's order says anything less than 50% should be considered as a removal criteria. So this tree, has been pruned over and over, just raising the crown, trying to get clearance over the street, the 14 feet that's required, and continuously trying to remove limbs away from the muni lines. Kind of just creates a top-heavy tree. The tree doesn't have a lot of foliage to oscillate and vibrate when there are winds that will then kind of dampen the load on that branch. This arrow points to the poor structure. Again, another criteria, codominant stems being a reason for us to approve a ficus tree for removal. Here the tree has several codominants with weak attachments. So any of these could be a point where those large circumference lateral limbs could tear off and break. And then this is the other view of the tree. Again, you can see here all the codominant stems, and then also the arrow on the right points to an area of decay. And this is just a zoomed in photo of that pocket of decay. The tree, works to compartmentalize this wound and injury and kind of lock in that area of decay and prevent it from expanding into more parts of the tree. But it is an indicator that something is wrong with the tree, and without further testing and tools, tomography and remote sensing, can we really understand how much of that column of the trunk is decay. This is the second tree in front of 1698 Sutter. It has a little bit more live crown ratio. I would say a little bit more than a third. Again, approved for removal because of the poor structure. Here, a very narrow angle of attachment. 2 codominant stems that are basically the same size. Studies have shown, especially when those stems are roughly the same size, that makes the tree more at risk of failure. Again, another view angle showing the codominant stem weak attachment. So to be consistent with other ficus we have approved for removal, we posted these ficus because of their low crown ratio, their previous failures, and mostly because of their poor structure. I'll read some of the inspection notes. The tree in front of 1688 Sutter, this tree has 5 codominant stems with 1 foot of included bark. They recommend removal and replacement. And after second inspection, they believe the tree can be replaced. In the current location, the utility pole is only a muni line support. So at first we were concerned maybe only one of the trees could be replaced. The tree closest to the corner at 1698 Sutter, they're worried about branch failures. There's interference with the muni lines. The tree has 3 codominant stems and has been lion-tailed, meaning, again, the live crown ratio is very low, very poor. All the foliage on the tree has been removed except at the very top, creating that lion's tail. So like a bare branch and then all the foliage just at the very top. That leaves all the weight on the end branches. There's included bark and the branch unions, and we also found root decay possible due to the previous sidewalk repair. So to be consistent again with other cases, we approved these 2 ficus for removal, and we found that both trees can be replaced.
Thank you. Is the property owner or the appellant here wish to speak regarding this item? Property owner or appellant wish to speak regarding this item? If not, any member of the public that wishes to speak regarding this item, please step up to the mic and state your name for the record.
Josh Clip, just the CEQA argument. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Yes, Michael Nolte. I guess I like repeating myself. First is the notice, improper notice of the meeting, or is there another meeting on the same topic on Wednesday, 2 days from now? Again, it's up on the website, so if it's still on the website as of today, right now, and so it's misleading the public when to come to this meeting, or if there's 2 meetings and very confusing. This time the city was a little bit more clear about this particular agenda item, but again, I think the citizens of San Francisco want to see to preserve and trim as needed trees and not just hack them down and assume that, again, as we've heard, a 20-year process will take place or 15-year process to replace them. So if that does happen. So, and then what kind, that wasn't in the presentation. You know, if you're gonna remove them to what kind of species. So it wasn't a full, again, presentation. Again, you know, this is the hearing. The hearing is now, not some other time. And if you can't present the whole facts, then do your homework and, you know, ask, my question is, okay, if you're going to remove the trees, remove them to as what? And that wasn't presented. So, yes, there are muni lines. Muni lines exist. At some point, maybe we're going to have no overhead whatever wiring. They should be maybe on bus lines if that's causing a problem with all the trees. Maybe then another city department needs to be discussed, which is muni, and say, well, we need to start removing the those wires so that they're not causing problems to our trees. And that would be the buses. The buses would be changed, and they would not interfere with the branches. I mean, it's kind of a simple fix. If that was if that's the only reason for removing the trees is the wiring. Now, if there's any other additional fixes, because these are Mother Nature, and Mother Nature needs to be looked at first as to stay and preserve, if possible, before you take a drastic measure of removal. And I don't hear all the, it's not a well thought out. All I hear is somebody does their job, looks at the tree, comes back with a report, but doesn't have have a complete report to present to you, the decision maker, or at least somebody that's supposed to oversee this hearing. And then me as the public, I have to understand what's being said, and I don't still hear it all. So incomplete presentation, but it did a little bit better than the first one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak regarding this item?
Good evening. My name is John Nolte. Again, this is, another 2 more trees to add to the list of the war on ficus trees in San Francisco. Apparently, again, we have, these are, again, probably were trimmed because of the Muni lines. I didn't hear anything about overhead lines for PG&E or anything else, so I only heard about Muni. Muni is a city agency, and since it's a city agency, there's no coordination between the agencies, and that is a problem that we have in San Francisco. That you just have, you look at a chart of San Francisco and the agencies, and they don't talk to each other. They all internalize themselves, and they're just, it's like an octopus. The arms are just going flying each way. And so this is why we have a problem the way we do. Each one has their own IT department. And so like you just started for the hearing notices, you redesigned the page that it's on this month. And so that page has been changed. And so that's also another issue that has to be addressed. Again, you have a new IT, your own IT department, and the agendas for your different hearings are being posted on that certain page. So this is again what happens with you get new. We just passed the budget. You get more money, and so you change your website, and of course this irritates the public because now we can't find the page, or it's changed, and you can't find the things that are on your website, and so this is a continuing problem with not just your department, but other departments are doing the same thing. When they get a new set of money, then they want to come up with new ideas on how to, and actually the whole website for the city and county of San Francisco has changed. And you're a link in that process with your department. Next, going back to the trees, the tree, I think they should be saved if they can be, and if necessary, lastly, if this is going to be a removal, since you're going to be getting $6 million to replace trees in the current budget, I suggest that if we go for the full 36-inch box, which is not discussed again part of the presentation because you made a point that you wanted to replace it. So I would go for a 36-inch box to replace, and a tree that would have shade like the ficus tree that it currently has, and not these other ones that they are proposing on various streets to replace ficus trees because they're not shade trees, and so therefore you're adding to the global warming of San Francisco by not bringing in shade trees. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the department have anything further to add?
Sarah Stacy, Bureau of Urban Forestry. I'll just apologize on behalf of the department for the miscommunication about the hearing. We'll look into what's on the website and revising that, removing it for what's noted for Wednesday. That's said to address that item. And then 2, I would just like more information on where we're not planting shade trees. That's very, site specific. Depends on what the community asks for, what the replacement tree is. That's why I did not state a specific species for replacement. Our standard replacement tree is a 24-inch box. For a lot of construction projects, we may require larger sizes, but standard is 24-inch box. A lot of replacement trees are Brisbane box, but that may not be appropriate for all sites. Where this these 2 trees are being removed. The community asked for cherry trees. I would not consider that as a shade tree necessarily, but there also are magnolia trees on this street corridor, so there's a variety of trees. The cherry tree was chosen because of its proximity to Japantown and its cultural importance to that community. And I believe Public Works, listening to the community in terms of what trees they would like is very important, especially in getting the public to uphold and value the importance of trees and form a connection with the trees in their neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to rebut?
I'm going to rebut what was talked about being in Japantown. Apparently, because there is a Japantown, there's multiple entities that are involved there. But again, it's a city entity. It was started with Japantown was formed with the redevelopment money, and so therefore, and it was part of the whole plazas and everything in the immediate area was. Built with redevelopment money. So the question is, again, another city agency that was now defunct because of the redevelopment agency was started by the state, and the governor disbanded them. But then that agency is still around and is being funded that took over for the redevelopment properties. So there is, again, another agency that is, again, like I said, arms, saying one agency saying one thing, another agency saying another thing. And me as a native San Franciscan, of course, I'd like to be cultural identified with Japantown, but you cannot be putting all the cherry trees around Japantown. You have to have a variety, and also that's stated in your plant. And when you do plant, you cannot be planting all kind. You have to have variety on the streets, and you cannot. And in Japantown, I've already done surveys in Japantown, so there are plenty already cherry trees. So I could stick again to another shade tree for replacement. And if they feel they can put in a 36-inch box, then a 24-inch box with a bigger tree. So, but again, I wanted to be a shade tree because you're taking out a shade tree. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay.
Michael Nolte, also a native San Franciscan, 5th generation San Francisco, and ditto. I think the problem here is, who is San Francisco? San Francisco is we the people, and I think on one hand, trees are very important, and do we have to come to a hearing do we have to make it a part of my day every time there's another need for another tree to be cut down to be here? I don't get paid. I'm not getting paid to be here, and we're not getting paid to do all the homework that the city actually got paid staff to be here. Hopefully you get a paycheck, but anyway. But the thing is, we're trying to fight for the survival of our city here when all we're doing is talking about trees. And trees are very important, but and I appreciate that the fact that they're all one agenda item is a bunch of trees, but still the problem is, why are we fighting tree by tree by tree, and pretty soon that commodity is not going to be around. I mean, if you keep on losing them. So this is important that one, we need to have trees that are amenable to the neighborhood and will prosper. We're only getting our temperature is only getting hotter, so they have to survive. These trees, another resource we don't have a lot of is proper water. So you plant something, how much water is it going to consume for it to survive? So let's make sure if we're putting stuff in it, it's actually going to be there 30, 40 years from now. and that it's properly put in. Obviously, mistakes have been made in the past, and maybe we can try fixing some of them, but I'm here for preserving the trees and trim as necessary. Hopefully, that's all needs to be said about all these agenda items. Thank you. Preserve, preserve, preserve.
Thank you, and I just wish to say we appreciate all the members of the public passion. Passion is priceless, so thank you for coming, even though you're not being paid. We couldn't pay you even if we tried. Thank you. Any more items for this agenda? Seeing no more further items, no more comments for this item, I will now close the item, and I will make my recommendations to the director. Are there any public comments on any items on the agenda? If you've spoken, you will not be allowed to speak again. This is for those who might have come late or didn't have a chance to speak. Seeing no more public comments, we are closing this hearing. Thank you very much for all your time, and this hearing is now closed. Thank you.
Unexpected. I was like, wait.
Thank you.